What do you mean she got fired for going to a funeral? Aiden Zeller froze in the break room doorway, clutching a paper cup of burnt coffee. He hadn't meant to say it out loud. The words just slipped out. The two call center reps standing near the microwave turned to him. One of them, a slim guy with tired eyes and a name badge that read Corey, gave him a weird look. You knew? Yeah, just started, Aiden said quickly, shifting his voice to sound a little younger. He looked nothing like the man in the framed photo hanging in the lobby. That version of him wore a suit, had fewer wrinkles, and didn't have a fake scar running across his cheek. The disguise team had gone all in dyed hair, glasses, prosthetic nose. He looked like a guy named Matt from Ohio. This was one of the 20 call centers he owned. He'd bought the company 6 years ago from a retired couple who'd built it from the ground up. Over the years, it had grown fast, maybe too fast. Lately, complaints had started piling up. Long wait times, rude agents, high turnover. The last straw came during a quarterly report when his VP danced around questions about the Northside branch's high attrition rate. So here he was, undercover, training as a new hire in the Northside call center. Corey took a sip of his water. Yeah, that was last week. Girl named Tina. Sweet kid, asked for a day off cause her grandma died. Manager said no, she didn't show. Next day she was gone. The other rep, a woman named Danny, shook her head. Tina was one of the best, never late, always stayed overtime, and Mike just tossed her like trash. Mike, the site manager. Aiden had only seen him from a distance so far. Loud, always on his phone, liked to stand behind people while they worked. How come there's such a staff shortage here? Aiden asked carefully. Corey laughed without humor. Because people quit or get canned over nothing, like Tina. Or because they can't hit quota when the system crashes every other hour. Danny nodded. We're down at least 6 reps. They keep hiring but nobody stays. Aiden clenched his jaw. That system issue, how long's that been happening? Months, Corey said. We report it, but Mike says corporate won't approve the upgrade. Corporate, that was him. But he'd never heard a word about it. The rest of the day, Aiden sat in the open floor alongside 30 other agents, headset on, trying to keep up with the flood of calls. Thank you for calling. How can I? Yes, sir, I understand, he fumbled through, pretending to be a slow learner. Good cover to ask questions. The agents were helpful but tired, worn down. The scripts were outdated, the software clunky, and the customers furious. During lunch, he sat with a woman named Tara. She looked no older than 19 but handled calls with the calm of someone twice her age. You're good at this, he said. She shrugged. Helps when you need the job bad enough. College? Trying to save for it. My mom's sick, so I'm the only one bringing in money right now, but I'm fighting to hit my numbers every day. What happens if you don't? She glanced around, dropped her voice. Mike writes you up. 3 strikes, you're out. Doesn't matter if your system crashes mid-call or if a customer screams at you for 10 minutes. You're still held to the quota. That night, Aiden sat in his car in the parking lot. He rubbed his face, the fake scar itching. His shoulders hurt. His throat ached from talking all day. He'd built this company to give people second chances, to create jobs that mattered. He remembered telling his wife that he wanted to be the kind of CEO who knew what his people went through. But somewhere along the way, he'd lost that. He checked his notes. Tara, Corey, Danny. The system crashes. The quotas, and Tina. Fired for going to her grandmother's funeral. He wasn't going to let that slide, not this time. Aiden arrived early the next morning before the lights in the office had fully flickered on. The security guard at the front desk gave him a nod, barely looking up from his tablet. He took the stairs 2 at a time, passing the elevator where the poster of top manager of the quarter still showed Mike's face grinning above a slogan that read, Results Matter. He stepped into the main floor. The hum of aging computers and buzzing fluorescent lights filled the space. A few agents were already at their desks, sipping from travel mugs, heads down. There was no music, no chatter, just the low murmur of early calls and stiff keyboards. He walked toward his station but paused when he saw Mike standing at Tara's desk, arms folded, voice low and sharp. "I don't care what your excuse is. You missed your number by 4 yesterday. That's not acceptable," Mike said, leaning over her shoulder. Tara didn't look up. "I had 4 dropped calls. System froze." "Then figure out how not to let it happen. You want to work here, you meet quota. Simple." Aiden stepped in before he could stop himself. "Morning," he said, keeping his tone casual. "Did the system crash again yesterday?" Mike turned around, eyes narrowing slightly. "Who are you?" "Matt, new hire, just trying to understand how to avoid falling behind." Mike looked him over like he was a stain on the carpet. "You focus on your own numbers. Don't worry about anyone else's." "I just thought if the system's dropping calls, that's a tech issue, not an agent issue." Mike's voice dropped. "I don't need commentary from trainees. Get to your desk." Aiden nodded slowly and walked away, jaw tight. He didn't need more evidence, he already had it, but watching it happen in plain sight lit something in him he hadn't felt in years. By mid-morning, a customer call went sideways for Aiden. The system lagged, the customer grew impatient and eventually hung up. Aiden looked around. No one to ask for help. The floor supervisor, a guy named Sean, sat scrolling on his phone behind the glass partition, occasionally glancing up and waving off any hands that went up for assistance. Aiden approached him, careful to keep his expression neutral. "Hey, just had a dropped call." "Not sure if it logs as a complete or not." Sean barely looked up. "Then log it as complete." "But the customer hung up before I could resolve anything." "Still counts, don't overthink it." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that against policy?" Sean set down his phone. "Look, man. You want to make your quota or not? Everyone here logs those as completes. You don't, you fall behind. You fall behind, you get written up. Your call, I'm not holding your hand." Aiden stared at him for a beat, then nodded and walked away. Noted. During break, he found Danny and Corey sitting near the vending machines again. They looked up as he approached. "Corey," Aiden said, "you mentioned something about the system issues yesterday. Has anyone ever tried to escalate it past Mike?" Corey gave a short laugh. "You mean like to corporate?" "Not unless you want to magically disappear from the schedule." Danny leaned forward. "He's got Sean and that guy from HR in his pocket. You complain, they say you're being difficult or negative for team morale. Next thing you know, you're on weekend shifts with no PTO." Aiden frowned. "That's retaliation," Danny shrugged. "We just keep our heads down." The door swung open. Mike walked in, barking out, "Everyone back on the floor in 2," before disappearing into his office. Corey stood up slowly. "Welcome to Northside." Back at his desk, Aiden couldn't stop watching. Not just the agents, but the environment. The way Sean ignored raised hands. How Mike only emerged to yell or threaten. The way the tech support line rang endlessly whenever someone called. Every agent looked like they were running on fumes but still pushing. He watched Tara take a call where a customer screamed at her for several minutes. Her hand shook as she typed notes into the system, but she didn't break. When she clicked off, she took a single breath and answered the next call. That afternoon, Aiden was pulled aside by Sean. "Mike wants to see you," he said, pointing with his thumb over his shoulder. Aiden followed him into the office. Mike was behind the desk, arms crossed. "You're asking too many questions," he said flatly. "I'm trying to learn how things work." "Well, stop. You're not here to fix anything. You're here to hit your numbers." "I'm also here to understand why things aren't working." Mike stood up. "You don't get it. This isn't a charity. You work, you hit quota, you go home. That's it. You don't come in here acting like you're gonna change the system." Aiden locked eyes with him. "Maybe the system needs changing." Mike stepped closer. "Last warning, you push it again, you're out. I don't care if it's your second day." Aiden nodded. "Understood." He left the office but didn't go back to his desk. Instead, he headed to the stairwell and stepped outside for a few minutes. The air was thick with humidity, but it felt better than the recycled air of the call floor. He pulled out his phone and made a quick note. "Mike, hostile culture, retaliatory management encourages unethical logging." Just before the end of shift, a new face walked in. A young man, tall, nervous, probably another new hire. He stood near the entrance, unsure where to go. Sean looked up from behind the glass, then leaned back and waved him forward without getting up. When the guy hesitated, Sean rolled his eyes and shouted across the floor. "Are you deaf or something? I said come here." Silence fell, heads turned. The new guy froze. Aiden stood. "Hey," he said, stepping toward the young man. "You looking for training?" The kid nodded, still stunned. "I'll walk you over." Sean stood now, annoyed. "I said I've got it." Aiden turned. "I think he's good with me." Sean's jaw tightened. "You're a trainee." Aiden looked at him. "Not exactly." Mike emerged from his office, voice sharp. "What's going on now?" Aiden reached into his pocket and pulled out his badge, the real one. The one with his name, Aiden Zeller, founder and CEO. He held it up. "What's going on," he said, "is a complete failure of leadership." The room froze, Mike's face drained of color. Sean stepped back. Aiden turned to the floor. "Everyone, this call center is officially under review. Effective immediately, Mike and Sean are suspended pending investigation. HR will be contacting each of you directly. If you've experienced retaliation, harassment, or unethical pressure to falsify data, you will be heard." Nobody spoke. Then Tara stood up slowly. Is this real?" Aiden nodded. "It's real, and it's long overdue." He looked at the new hire, who was still frozen in place. "You're not late, you're just in time." The conference room on the second floor smelled faintly of dry erase marker and stale coffee. Aiden sat at the head of the long table, sleeves rolled up, his badge now clipped plainly to his shirt. Across from him sat Tara, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She hadn't said much since being called up, her eyes flicking occasionally to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the parking lot. Aiden leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. "I know this is a strange day. I appreciate you coming in." Tara nodded once, lips pressed together. "I want to ask you something," he continued. "Not about what's wrong. I already saw enough of that. I want to know if you were running this center, what's the first thing you'd change?" She hesitated. "Honestly, that's the only way this works." She took a breath. "The way we're measured. The quotas, they don't consider the customer's actual experience, just how fast we move them off the line." Aiden nodded slowly. "What would you measure instead?" "Resolution," she said. "Actual help. If someone calls crying because they can't pay their bill and I walk them through options, that should count for something. But if I take too long doing it, I get penalized." He scribbled a few words on a notepad. "What else?" She glanced at the closed door. "Training. Most of us figure things out by watching the person next to us. And if that person's struggling, we start off behind." He tapped his pen. "You've put more thought into this than most people paid twice what you are." She gave a small shrug. "I've had a lot of time to think between calls." He closed the notebook. "You're not going back to the floor today. I want you to sit with the transition team, give them your full picture." Her brows lifted. "Wait, you want me to help with the rework?" "I want this place to work for the people who actually keep it running." "That means you." She blinked, still processing. "Okay, yeah, I can do that." "Good, take a seat in the upstairs office. You'll meet the team in 20 minutes. As she left, another employee was already waiting outside the door. Aiden gestured him in. Over the next 4 hours, he met with 12 agents individually, no scripts, no HR buffer. Just him, a notebook, and a commitment to hear what hadn't been said before. Corey came in halfway through. His demeanor was cautious, arms folded across his chest. "I know people are nervous right now," Aiden said, gesturing to the seat across from him. "I'm not here to trap anyone." Corey sat slowly. "Not gonna lie, I didn't expect to see you at a headset 2 days ago. That's the point. I couldn't fix what I hadn't seen." Corey gave a tight laugh. "Well, you saw it. What's one thing I didn't see?" Corey looked down at his hands, then back up. "The way people stop trying, not because they don't care, but because they know it won't matter." Aiden nodded once. "You've been here 2 years. 2.5. Why stay, my kid?" "She's 5. I get off early enough to pick her up from daycare, and I need the insurance. Would you stay if things changed?" "If I thought someone actually gave a damn, yeah, I'd stay." Aiden reached for his phone and typed something short. You're on the advisory panel now. We're building a new leadership structure. You start tomorrow, Corey blinked. Seriously, you've earned it. By 5 p.m., the last of the interviews wrapped. Aiden stepped out of the conference room and headed toward the back office. The floor was quieter than usual, the remaining agents focused but less tense. No one was being barked at. No one was being hovered over in the HR office. He found the regional HR director, Clarissa, reviewing a stack of internal complaints. She looked up as he entered. "We've already confirmed 3 retaliation cases," she said, sliding the documents across the desk. One of them involved a disabled employee being denied schedule accommodations. "What's the status on that?" "Already reactivated. We're offering them a chance to transfer to another center if they prefer." "Good. What about the tech issues?" "Engineering started remote diagnostics this morning. Turns out the local server hadn't been patched in nearly a year." He exhaled sharply. "How long to get it stable?" 48 hours for the first pass. Full optimization should take a week." "Keep me posted hourly," she nodded. "And Mike?" "Gone, permanently. Don't even put his name on the exit paperwork." Clarissa raised an eyebrow. "I assume that includes Sean." "Absolutely. Anyone who enabled this culture is out. No negotiations." She leaned back. "Understood." A knock came at the door. A young woman stepped in dark blazer, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Zeller, the operations audit team just arrived. Send them to the floor." "Quietly, I want a full behavior read before anyone knows they're being watched." She nodded and disappeared. Aiden turned back to Clarissa. "Tomorrow morning I want a full staff meeting. Everyone will talk about what's next." "Should I prepare an outline?" "No," he said. "They've heard enough outlines. I'll talk, just me." The sun was low when he stepped outside. The parking lot was mostly empty now, except for a few cars agents on late shifts, probably pulling overtime. He walked the edge of the lot, head down, thinking. He hadn't just found a broken center. He'd found a pattern. A set of systems that rewarded silence, punished integrity, and buried every good intention under layers of pressure and fear. That night, he stayed in a downtown hotel instead of driving back to his main office. The room was modest but quiet. He sat at the desk with a laptop open and drafted a message to every other call center manager across the company. The subject line was simple. "We start here." He didn't copy in PR, he didn't loop in marketing. This wasn't about optics, it was about truth. He outlined what he'd seen, what was changing, and what would no longer be tolerated. Then he added one final line. "If you are not willing to lead with integrity, step aside now, otherwise I will do it for you." He hit send. Then he opened a second email. This one was addressed to Tina. He'd found her contact info earlier that day, buried in an old employee file that had never been properly closed. He typed, "Tina, my name is Aiden Zeller. I'm the CEO of the company. I just learned what happened to you. You deserved better. If you're willing, I'd like to speak with you personally and offer you your position back, along with a promotion and full back pay. Either way, I want you to know that what happened was wrong. And it won't happen again." He paused, reread it, then added, "Your grandmother would be proud of you." He signed it, closed the laptop, and sat back. Tomorrow was going to be hard. There were still problems to fix, more stories to hear, deeper roots to pull. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was finally doing the job he'd promised himself he would. The next morning, the North Side call center opened under a different kind of pressure, quiet, focused, and watchful. No corporate banners, no motivational speeches. Just one simple announcement posted on the bulletin board above the time clock. Mandatory all staff meeting 9:00 a.m. main floor. Attendance required. Tara stood near the back of the room, arms crossed, eyes scanning the rows of chairs hastily arranged between workstations. Most of the agents looked uncertain, some visibly anxious. A few whispered behind cupped hands. One or two stared blankly ahead, as if bracing for another round of empty promises. Corey sat near the front, flipping a pen between his fingers without looking at anyone. When Aiden stepped forward, the room fell silent on its own. No microphone, no stage, just him, standing among the people who had been carrying his company while he'd been oceans away in every sense. "I'm not here to ask for trust," he said. "I'm here to earn it, starting today." No one moved. He held a manila folder in his hand, thick with documents. This file contains every single policy that was used to justify things that should never have happened. Some of them were written with good intentions, but intentions don't protect people. Actions do. He dropped the folder onto a table beside him. As of this morning, those policies are void. Someone let out a breath. He didn't look to see who. "Let's be clear," he continued. "We're not patching the holes. We're rebuilding the floor." He gestured to the side, where a new face had just entered, middle-aged, composed, wearing a navy blouse and a lanyard with a silver badge. "This is Denise. She's the interim site director. She doesn't report to a regional layer. She reports directly to me. And if anyone here experiences retaliation, harassment, or unethical pressure, you don't go through chains, you go directly to her." Denise nodded once. "I'll be sitting at the open desk by the stairwell, no door, no appointments." Someone in the back raised a hand. Aiden pointed to him. "Are we still expected to hit yesterday's quotas?" the man asked, voice tense. "No," Aiden replied. "Effective immediately, quotas will be replaced with performance assessments based on resolution quality, not call volume. You'll learn more during the retraining sessions starting this afternoon." A woman near the center stood slowly, her voice unsteady. "What about PTO that was denied last quarter?" "Every denied request is being reviewed. If it was improperly rejected, it will be restored. That includes back pay if you had to work through it." Another hand. "Will we be punished for complaints we made before today?" "No one is being penalized for speaking up," Aiden said. "And if you were, that's being corrected." The room remained still, but something had shifted, not relief. "Not yet, but the tension had loosened by a thread." "Final thing," he said. "I've asked 5 of your fellow agents to join a new internal review panel. They'll help shape the changes. They're not managers, they're your peers. You'll know who they are later today. You'll be able to reach them directly." He let the silence settle. "Back to work," he said. But not the way it was. As employees filed out, Denise began stopping people one by one. No clipboard, no checklist, just asking how they were doing. Really doing. Aiden watched from a distance. Arms folded. By noon, the retraining sessions began in small groups. The old scripts were gone. Agents were taught to listen first, resolve second, close last. The language shifted from controlling the call to understanding the caller. One of the trainers, a former agent promoted from a different branch, walked through realistic scenarios and asked for feedback instead of dictating steps. When Tara arrived for her session, she paused at the door. Aiden caught her eye. "Something wrong?" he asked. "No," she said. "Just feels weird. Like I'm not waiting for the floor to drop out from under me. That's the point." She stepped inside. Later that afternoon, Aiden sat in Denise's new office space, just a desk between 2 filing cabinets, reviewing a thick report from IT. It confirmed what he already suspected. The server had been neglected long before the site ever started missing performance targets. The connection drops, the frozen screens, the lost call notes, they'd all been symptoms of a center running on skeleton support while being held to impossible standards. He signed off the emergency upgrade. Replacement equipment would be installed within 72 hours. Denise leaned over. "We've had 3 people come forward about Sean. None of the complaints were filed officially, but they documented everything: dates, language, even witnesses. Enough to support wrongful termination suits. Easily. Forward it to legal. I want them to reach out to those employees directly. We make it right, not just compliant." She nodded and typed something quickly. Outside, Corey stood near a whiteboard explaining a new workflow to a group of agents. His voice was calm but firm, his posture more assured than it had been just the day before. When one of the newer hires asked a question, he didn't wave them off. He leaned in, broke it down, and invited a second opinion. That evening, Aiden took the elevator up to the storage level. He'd heard it was underutilized, just a dusty room with retired equipment and old training modules. But he had another purpose. Inside, he found what he was looking for, an unused office with windows overlooking the call floor. He cleared the dust from the desk with his sleeve and sat down, no nameplate, no framed awards, just a chair and a view. He picked up the landline and dialed his assistant. "Block off every Friday from now through the end of the year," he said. "I'll be working from Northside on those days." He hung up before she could ask why. At sunset, he walked the floor one last time. The agents were quieter now, but not worn down, focused. The energy wasn't frantic anymore. It was steady. Rebuilding. As he reached the exit, he noticed a small white envelope taped to the inside of the door. His name was written on the front in neat handwriting. Inside was a handwritten card. "No return address," it read. "I got your message. I appreciate the apology. I'm not coming back, but I'm glad to know things are changing. For their sake, keep going. Tina." Aiden folded the card carefully and placed it in his inside jacket pocket. He didn't need her to return. He just needed to make sure no one else went through what she did. He stepped outside into the cooling evening, the streetlights flickering on one by one. This wasn't a turnaround measured in charts or headlines. It wouldn't be fast. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be real. And that, at last, was enough to begin.